This video will finally make Capture One make sense. If you're a beginner, follow along with me. I'll explain everything step by step and we'll edit a portrait from start to finish together. Before we import anything, let's quickly talk about how Capture One organizes photos, because this part confuses a lot of people. When you open Capture One for the first time, you're asked to choose between a session and a catalog. This choice sounds technical, but it's actually very simple. A catalog is like a photo library. All your images lives in one place, similar to how Lightroom works. This is useful if you want everything searchable over time. A session is more project-based. Each shoot lives its own folder with separate folders for selects, output, and trash. Many photographers prefer sessions because they're clean, simple, and self-contained. If you like long-term organization, a catalog makes sense. If you prefer keeping each shot separate, a session is often easier. For this tutorial, either option works perfectly fine. Before importing photos, let's take a moment and understand the interface. On the left side of the screen, you will see a vertical row of icons. These are your tool tabs, where all your editing tools live. On the right side is the browser. This is where your images appear. And in the center is the viewer, where you see the photo you're working on. Capture One also allows you to change how this workspace looks. If you're coming from Lightroom, there's a workspace called Migration. It moves the browser to the bottom and the editing tools to the right, which feels more familiar for many people. You can enable it by going to Window, then Workspace, and choosing Migration. For this tutorial, I'll use the Migration workspace because it's easier to follow visually. Now let's import some photos. Go to the top and click Import. This window can look overwhelming at first, but don't worry, we're going to keep this very simple. On the left side, you choose where your photos are coming from. This could be a folder on your computer, an SD card, or any external drive. In my case, I have a demo folder on my desktop, so I'm gonna import the pictures from there. The most important decision here is choosing between Add and Copy, so let's slow down for a second. Add means Capture One only references the photos in their current location. If you move or delete them later, Capture One won't be able to export your edits or find these pictures. Copy means Capture One creates a second copy of your images inside the catalog. This is safer and more reliable for most beginners. Once that's set, click Import. Now let's start editing. White balance controls the overall color of the image. If skin looks too yellow, too blue, or just wrong, white balance is usually the reason. Open the white balance tool, use the eyedropper, and click on something neutral, like a white shirt, a gray wall, or a neutral part of the background. Now look at the temperature slider. Moving it to the right makes the image warmer. Moving it to the left makes it cooler. The tint slider controls green and magenta tones, and this is usually a very small adjustment. Move both sliders slowly until the skin looks natural. Not perfect, just believable. Press Y to check the before and after. If the face immediately feels better, you're on the right track. Next, let's look at exposure. Exposure controls how bright or dark the image feels overall. Open the exposure tool and start with the exposure slider. Bring the image to a comfortable brightness. Next is contrast. Contrast controls the difference between light and dark areas of the face. A small amount usually helps, too much will make the skin look harsh. Brightness fine-tunes the midtones. If exposure feels too strong, use brightness instead. Take your time here and keep checking the before and after. Now, we'll refine the light using high dynamic range. This tool helps control bright and dark areas separately. Lower highlights to recover bright areas like foreheads, cheeks, or bright clothing. Raise shadows to bring back detail in hair, jackets, or the shaded side of the face. Whites and blacks define the brightness and darkest points in the image. They add depth without damaging the skin tone. We will need to make small adjustments here. This tool rewards subtlety. At this point, the light should feel balanced. Nothing should be too bright or completely crushed. Now we can talk about clarity. Clarity doesn't change brightness, it changes how separated things feel, especially in the midtones. On portraits, this affects how defined facial features look. Too much clarity will make skin look rough very quickly. So instead of thinking more clarity, think just a little definition. Open the Clarity tool, move the Clarity slider slowly and watch the face, not the background. Stop as soon facial features feel clearer and not sharper. Now look at Structure. Structure affects very fine detail, including skin texture and pores. For portraits, less is always more. If texture starts jumping out, you've gone too far. Restraint here is what makes an edit look professional. Now that the image has structure, we can shape contrast more deliberately. This is where curves come in. Gives you very precise control over contrast. Think of the curve as a gently guiding the light. By lifting highlights slightly and lowering shadows slightly, you add dimension without changing the overall skin tone balance. If the face ever starts looking too contrasty, just ease off. Curves work best with very small movements. Levels come next and work closely with curves. Levels helps define where true black and true white lives in the image. By moving the black point slightly inward, you decide what true black is. By moving the white point slightly inward, you decide what true white is. This helps the image feel finished without needing heavy contrast. Again, small adjustments are all you need. Now let's fine-tune color. The color editor is where you adjust specific colors without affecting the entire image. This is especially useful for skin tones. When you adjust hue, you're subtly correcting skin color. When you adjust saturation, you control redness. When you adjust lightness, you control how bright the skin appears. Each adjustment should feel almost invisible on its own. Together, they make skin feel natural and healthy. Keep checking before and after. If the skin looks better but not edited, you're doing it right. Now, we can gently influence the mood of the image. Color balance is not about correction, it's about the feeling. Adding a touch of warmth to highlights can make skin feel alive. Cooling shadows slightly can add depth and separation. Always stay subtle. If you notice the color balance instead of the person, it's too much. On some images, you may skip this entirely, and that's perfectly fine. Before we do any retouching, let's talk about mindset. Good skin retouching is not about perfection. Skin has texture, variation, and character, and that's a good thing. The goal is not to make someone look unreal, the goal is to remove distractions. Those temporary blemishes, small spots, or anything that pulls attention away from the eyes. If it doesn't distract you, it probably doesn't need fixing. Always zoom out while retouching. If you only work zoomed in, it's very easy to go too far. Less retouching almost always looks more professional than more retouching. Up to now, everything we've done affects the entire image. This is called global editing. Layers let us work more selectively. In Capture One, layers don't change the photo itself. They only hold adjustment, which means everything is reversible. Create a new adjustment layer. Nothing happens yet, and that's normal. If you increase the exposure on the layer, nothing changes until you paint. Using the brush, you can gently apply adjustment to specific areas. This is useful when one area feels slightly too dark or too bright. We're not fixing everything with layers, we're just adding control when global adjustment feels too strong. If layers feel confusing, that's okay. For now, it's enough to know they exist and that they're safe to use. This image doesn't really need noise reduction, but it's important to know where it lives. Noise usually appears in darker areas like hair or shadows. Zoom to 100% so you can actually see it. Reduce luminance noise slowly, just until the image feels clean. If you see color speckles, reduce color noise slightly. If you do not see noise, there's nothing to fix. Noise reduction, it's about cleaning, not smoothing. Once the image feels finished, it's time to export. Open the Export tool. For most uses, JPEG is the right choice. It's lightweight, widely supported, and looks great. If you followed along, you just edited a portrait in Capture One from start to finish. You now understand how the workspace works, how to import photos correctly, and how each major tool fits into the process. More importantly, you have clear order to follow every time you edit, so you're never guessing what to do next. You won't use every tool on every image, and that's exactly how it should be. If this feels slow or awkward, that's completely normal. Editing, it's a skill, and skill improves with repetition.